Okay, so where we left off, we have the Great Fairy of Death Mountain, and there are several Great Fairies throughout the game. This one is, I'm pretty sure it is actually the first one that you can visit, and generally the protocol is the same. There should be, again, my emulator is not fantastic, so there should be, where I'm standing, a Triforce, I believe, a sort of gilded Triforce that signifies, as does much in the game, whenever you see a Triforce symbol, that Zelda's Lullaby is important. I don't think I mentioned it previously, but obviously you can see here that Zelda's Lullaby is sort of, in the way that the three triangles are sort of laid out, almost looks a bit like a Triforce. There you can see it there. It's funny that some angles you can see it, some you can't. Again, that's just the way the emulator's working. But yeah, in all her majesty, the Great Fairy of Death Mountain. Of course, being 12 years old and seeing that kind of feminine form in really sort of rudimentary 3D graphics, yeah, you're not really sure whether to be aroused or not. Okay, so there are a number of different things that she's actually just done for us. First of all, she's unlocked a more powerful spin attack. So I said it in a previous video that if you draw your sword and you hold B, you can unleash a charge attack. So if we do that now, you'll see that I've got a magically enhanced spin attack now. As you can see there, the radius of that has increased dramatically, and my magic meter, which we just got, has depleted somewhat as well. So she's essentially gifted you magic, as well as the spin attack. One thing you can also do is if you do really quick joystick spin. Yeah, I never knew this on my first playthrough, but I learned as I went along. You can actually do a quick spin attack just to knock back some enemies that doesn't actually deplete any magic. I think if you try and do that when you have absolutely no magic, it doesn't work, from what I remember. Oh, that's a telling line. Okay. So again, Nintendo wanting to show off the Navi style perspective, but from first person of Link heading down the mountain. And he dropped us off in Kakariko. And there's a really cool trick here where if you do it properly, you can just angle yourself to drop down onto this ledge and grab a heart piece that's in here. Which is pretty cool. I think that there is a from what I remember, a more scripted way to get that heart piece. But you know, I learned that trick really quickly on actually when I was playing this game. So yeah, I've never really done it the proper way. But it's a nice little trick to get an extra heart piece. I could do the little mini quest here where you collect all of Anju's cuckoos. I don't know if you actually learn her name in this game, but in Majora's Mask she's named Anju. But I think I'm just gonna continue on with the story for now. Okay, so I am going to do one slight side quest here just because it is necessary to complete the game. And that's to return to Hyrule Castle and basically follow the advice the Great Fairy's just given us to visit her friend that lives near the castle, who can entrust us with another magical upgrade. So essentially we just come back the same way we originally came. And I sort of ignored it last time when I just wanted to get through the guards really quickly, but there is a sign here that I can't remember exactly what it says, just dead end or something. Yeah, dead end. And you can blow up these rocks. Any rock that's kind of that sort of tan colour, you can usually blow up with a bomb. And we have a setting that looks pretty similar to the one we've just seen. Again, for some reason, no no Hyrulean crest. Hylian crest would be the way to say it, actually. So yeah, you can imagine an employee of Nintendo, you know, probably being into manga and anime because all the developers will be Japanese and wanting to put something suggestive into a kids game. So I guess that's where the idea of the Great Fairy comes from. If you've played Breath of the Wild, you'll notice that they don't. It's not quite so overt, I guess is probably the word. Political correctness and all that. So yeah, we've attained Din's Fire, which is one of 3 special magic attacks that we can use in this game. I say attacks. Din's Fire is actually the only one that counts as an attack. But we'll get to the others when we come to them. But the reason that we're coming to get Din's Fire now is just mainly so I don't forget later, but also because it can be quite useful in some circumstances if you're being if you're being surrounded by enemies at any one time. back to Hyrule Field. Typically, if I would, if someone were doing, a glitchless speed run, whether you can, whether you would do it differently with glitches, I'm not entirely sure because I haven't followed speed runs for a little while. But if you're doing a glitchless speed run, then you'd almost certainly want to save at the top of Death Mountain, I think, and then reload your save, because then it will take you to the entrance to Hyrule Field, which is going to be slightly closer to where we need to go. But obviously with the emulator, I'm just kind of running through as we go, and I have the added benefit of saving wherever I want to. If the Star Childs enter the water, then they will automatically die, which is handy to know. So this little walkway here, takes us to Gabora again. So again, dropping a pretty big hint of what you need to do to advance the story. You'll notice that, wow, for real? Okay, apparently that bomb was not close enough. I thought that was dead on. You'll notice that the only way to get through to Zora's domain, if you had been, if we'd sort of been exploring a little bit more earlier on, is to use bombs to actually destroy those rocks. So the game is sort of built in a way that you're supposed to advance certain parts of the story at certain times. Actually, what I am going to do here, you'll notice that time does pass in this area as well. Again, this is another way that you can just get a quick and easy heart piece while you're making your way to Zora's domain. So again, I'm probably going to be, considering this is a story walkthrough, I'm just going to be grabbing heart pieces, the ones that are within reach, and the ones that are really easy to get. This one's actually, it is easy to actually screw this up, so I might have to do it again, hoping that I won't. Okay. So, yeah, you can use cuckoos, if you're holding them, to drift while you're in the air. And using that, you're able to get just far enough to that ledge that if you let go of the cuckoo at the right time, then you can actually grab onto that ledge, and then if you do a full length jump, you should have just enough distance to climb up and grab that heart piece. So now we have 3, I believe. Let's take a quick look. Yeah, we have 3. When you collect 4, that will equate to a whole, an entire heart container, like you would get when you defeat a boss. I believe there is another. Yeah, there's another one there that pretty much the same method. You'd go back and get the cuckoo and grab that one, but. Okay. I didn't actually know that this waterfall was named. I've never really noticed that before, but this is this waterfall. Yeah, so there's a hint there of which song you need to play. The one that has Lullaby in the name. So you probably noticed the pattern here that Zelda's Lullaby, generally speaking, at least, especially for this initial part in the playthrough, is going to be really important, and it's going to have a lot of story elements that you can't advance without it. Zora's domain. Yeah, in case we didn't know that already. Yeah, so Zora's domain is one of those places that I feel that they got the music spot on here. You know, Kokiri Forest and Goron City have their own sort of iconic music, I would say. Still, Zora's domain I felt got the mood and tone perfectly right. Just because it was, you know, it has this almost echoey quality. So because you're in a sort of a cabin that's full of water, I thought that just hit the note really well, hit the tone right on the head. Just reacquainting yourself. Yeah, it's a shame that the camera angle has completely blocked your first view of Zora, but yeah. So you can see that they're vaguely humanoid, more humanoid than the Gorons certainly, and they are aquatic, so they can breathe underwater and they're excellent swimmers and so on. King is not quite the same. Yeah, so basically the game's explaining that you do have to stand here to actually chat to them. Okay, so you know, we've tried to address the king and he's pretty deep in thought at the moment. Yeah, that's all he says. It seems that the Princess Ruto, has disappeared, so let's see what we can find out. I don't think I've ever failed this, but this it is an essential minigame. Essentially, the first minigame that you do have to do again to advance the story. Initial dive. Sometimes you can pick up some easy rupees on that first dive, but how little I was paying attention. Again, pretty simple, just maneuver Link so that his own shadow is more or less in the direction of where the rupee is. And even then, you have to dive straight down, but you can, I believe, on the way up you can maneuver yourself a little bit more. So you can grab the rupee that's directly below you and then immediately begin maneuvering yourself to pick up the next one. I think one of the things I loved about these first 3 dungeons of Zelda, and what really sort of drew me into that world, was that it was one of the first games I played, and I know it's kind of a bit of a trope now, and probably was a trope back in the day, back in the the days of the SNES and the NES even. But the idea that you have very diverse environments within the same world, rewarded with silver scale, that's it. So it allows you to dive deeper. So that obviously you have the Kokiri Forest. I'm going to get it eventually. The Kokiri Forest, and then you have Goron City and Zora's Domain. Each, you could argue that you've got the elements at play here. You've got earth, water, and fire, and you get to explore these rich rich environments, all within the first few hours of the game. Played with Ocarina. So it's really brings you into Hyrule as a place, and convinces you that it's rich and diverse. Okay, so Lake Hylia. I think it's Hylia. I always used to say Hylia, but it could be Hylia. I'm not entirely sure of the pronunciation. But this is interesting. Now he's just saying, "What's that?" And again, this is key to the story. So there's something already inside this bottle that we've just got. I'm not sure. I'll have a look. Okay, so we've discovered pretty quickly that that Ruto is inside something called Lord Jabu-Jabu, which we haven't encountered yet. So that sounds ominous. The shop. Again, much like the shop in Goron City, nothing really of import right now. Story-wise, again, I think I'm pretty sure I'm missing a slight detail here. That I think there's another Zora that you speak to that explains that Ruto. Something about her involvement with Lake Hylia, and that's kind of what's supposed to direct you to actually go there and use the teleportation tunnel down there. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that was how I always just jumped in because I knew it was there. Of course, he's been here as well. Prepare for the longest and most annoying scene in this game. Yep. Yeah, he really is that. I'm really trying to not laugh because it's kind of funny, but it's also just not funny. The veterans of this game, it's not funny anymore. Just get on with it. Oh god, it's even longer than I remember. Okay, finally. So, King Zora has moved for us and given us passage. But we do need something else. Now that we have, essentially, in the if you consider what it's like in the game files, we've traded in our bottle with a note in it for an empty bottle. We can now use it. Probably, to be fair, if I'd gotten another empty bottle earlier on, I probably could have skipped and come down again. But this is easy enough. We need these fish. And you know, back in the day, I remember being amazed that that was a function in this game, that you could just take an empty bottle, go up to some fish that, you know, presumably are just part of the environment. You don't really see them as things that you can interact with, because there was so much in you know, in the N64 period that was just for show, and that you couldn't interact with. But yeah, I remember that really impressed me the first time. We'll see what this Jabu-Jabu is really all about. What is that? I guess. Yeah, that's Lord Jabu-Jabu. I actually don't remember reading anywhere else before that King Zora is essentially the 16th. That's not come up in anything I've read elsewhere. God, this guy's huge. Kind of reminds me of I can't remember the name of the area, but there's like a place that has a metal-clad whale in Banjo-Kazooie that looks pretty similar. Probably about the same size as well. Okay, there's a reason that I've come out to this sort of stretch of land that's just jutting out from the fountain here. Again, I don't think I found this on my own. In fact, I think I discovered this because when I first played Ocarina of Time, I rented it from my local game shop, and there was a save file that was basically inside the next dungeon when we get there. And when I came back out again, I found that there was this area, this outcrop, actually had a slightly different look to it. And you'll see why. Yeah, so this had already been bombed open, and that was how I discovered it. Was that, you know, in my own playthrough I knew it was there. Ooh, ah, no! Oh, you're joking. Oh, okay, okay. That's I've never accidentally done that before. But yeah, you can actually swipe up your fish even after you've let it out. Okay, so I'm glad that the programmers were essentially smarter than me and programmed that in so that you could get your fish back. That would have been embarrassing. Okay, so this is again third fairy fountain in quick succession. Again, this is one of the other 3 magical powers that I spoke about before. And you realise that the Great Fairies do look markedly similar, if not exactly the same. Okay, so we've got Farore's Wind. For the longest time, I called her Feyor, and I think I only realised. I think I maybe longer than 10 years. I called her Feyor, and no one ever corrected me, because it's not a part of the lore that's like you know, it's not absolutely integral to the story. But yeah, I think I was just reading Hyrule Historia one afternoon, and then I was like, "What? Faror?" And at first I was absolutely sure that there was a spelling mistake, and then I realised obviously they'd spelt it Faror in the whole way through. And I looked online and looked at clips from the game, and I was like, "Wow, it really has been Faror this whole time." I just had like a bout of childish dyslexia, and it stuck with me for 10 or 12 years. So Faror's Wind actually allows you to... It can be actually in many cases more useful than Din's Fire, and considering how long it's been since I played this game, and I'm not an absolute expert on it, it will actually be really useful because it's a teleportation... Oops, I didn't mean to do that. It's a teleportation item. It can only be used in dungeons, but it allows you to return to a room that you've visited previously. So if for example I know that I'm in a room that I'm going to be coming back to, then it can be pretty useful for just backtracking, and backtracking is a part of it's a part of pretty much every Zelda game. So okay, now the puzzle really here is how do you get inside Lord Jabu-Jabu's belly? If you try and slash him, well, he pretty much sounds like a stone wall or a metal wall, and he will not react to you in any way. There is no way to sort of force your way inside. The only way to actually get inside is to give him some incentive to eat you, supposedly in the same way that he ate Princess Ruto. So I think the story basically goes that Ruto was feeding him, so you're supposed to take that hint and feed him a fish. Which makes for a very entertaining scene. Okay, so basically you're inside Lord Jabu-Jabu, and this is the third dungeon. A bit more of a sort of off-the-wall concept. I'm just going to switch to my Deku Shield. Oh, you have to use it for that. Okay. The dungeon here is a little bit different from what you've experienced so far. I do think Jabu-Jabu is the first dungeon where it starts to you do start to get confused about where you are and where you're headed in certain areas, and that will happen in I would say probably most of the dungeons in Zelda the first time you're playing them. But the inside of the Deku Tree and Dodongo's cavern, they're a little bit more, I don't want to say linear, but they're a bit more simple. You generally get a sense of where you're going the whole way through, whereas I think in Jabu-Jabu's belly gets pretty convoluted in places, for the third dungeon of the game at least. This little area, actually, just at the beginning, always reminded me of Pinocchio, the Disney version when I was growing up, because I was absolutely terrified as a very young child of the whale in Pinocchio. It scared the living daylights out of me. And I was young enough that I don't have a lot of memory of that, but my parents remember it quite well. And they said that I just, I was, inconsolable with fear just from that whale. So it's kind of familiar to me in that respect, just of when Pinocchio and Geppetto are trapped inside the whale in that scenario. And obviously Link himself... I'm just going to finish this story bit. Wow, that's not helpful. Okay, so yeah, essentially, yeah, I was absolutely terrified of this whale in Pinocchio, and it's interesting to me that it's that reminiscent. I actually can't hurt these things, and they're coming right for me. It's very reminiscent of that, but also a little-known fact. Zelda fans will probably be aware of this, but Link is directly inspired by Peter Pan, specifically the Disney design of Peter Pan. So, you could argue that the Zelda series is, historically, when it comes down to the first Zelda games, quite heavily inspired by Disney animation. Back from that period, and this is, to me, this is kind of evidence that it's sort of continually inspired, because even when you think back to the original Zelda game, and then Ocarina of Time, more than a decade later. Strange holes. That's interesting. Now, this took me ages to work out, and I think this was the first time that I had to actually look at a walkthrough, because I hadn't a clue what to do. You actually have to speak to Ruto twice. I mean, she was so surly the first time I spoke to her. I just thought, well, screw you. I'm not talking to you again. Tried to complete the dungeon on my own, and then realised, you actually can't do it without her. Okay. Get away from that thing. So, Ruto becomes your sort of companion for this dungeon, which, in almost every sense possible, is a pain, because it's much easier to do everything on your own than have to really carry someone else around with you, but she is essential in completing the puzzles, so that's part of the reason why I followed her down the pit when she walked into it, because you do need her. Just gonna get that Skulltula. Why not? It's sitting right there. Oh yeah, I can't climb up that. These things. Stingers. Yeah, these things are pretty annoying. They kind of float under the surface of the water where you can't hit them, and then will suddenly fly up like that one did. You can hit them with your slingshot, but they take an extra hit rather than the bats. I'm amazed you haven't hit me yet. Always really annoyed me that the timer will continue to count down. Ooh. We have an empty bottle now. Special aspect of having an empty bottle means that you can capture fairies I'm really... Ah, there we go. You have to be careful because if you touch it before you get a chance to swing and catch it in your bottle, then it will just automatically activate and you won't be able to use it later on. But essentially, catching a fairy in a bottle means that if you run out of life, the fairy will revive you the moment you lose your last inch of health, and you'll have, well, essentially 8 hearts to work with. I think it's 8. It could be 6. I know I said 8 in a previous video, but I'm starting to doubt my own knowledge now. I'm trying to remember how you get Ruto across with you. Oh yeah. Okay. I think. Pretty sure you need to jump down. Yeah, you get just enough height that you can throw Ruto, and then you have to use the switch to get yourself up. It's a bit deceiving because when you you think about how far you can throw another person, you don't think you can get that much distance, but you can. Okay. We used at the beginning. Angle wasn't quite right enough on that. So yeah, much easier to defeat those Octoroks when you've got a direct target on them. I think if you there is something that you can get if you swim under that tunnel that was just there, but I don't think it's essential, so I'm not gonna worry myself too much with that. But yeah, this is all an effort of bringing Ruto back to the main part of the upper part of the dungeon. So she has wasted about 5-10 minutes of our time just by falling through that hole. So be careful not to fall down another hole because you'll have to make your way back up again. Again, another aspect I think that makes this dungeon a little bit harder than the first two. Just because if you make a mistake, you can be punished by having to punished by repetition, essentially. Could be the dungeon map that's in there, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it is. Okay, so you have to defeat a whole room of stingers, which is annoying because they only come out when they really choose to, or you get too close. They're annoying because their movements are slightly unpredictable, and you have to wait something like a second, I think, before a second shot will register. A bit like Link, if an enemy hits Link, then there's a sort of a wait period before you can be hurt again. So rule of thumb is just to wait until they look like they've stabilized again, and then just hit them with another shot. Pretty sure this is either the map or the coins. Map, presumably. Oh! Okay. Well, I was pretty wide of the mark there. Yeah, okay, so we've actually got the dungeon item before we've got on the map or the compass. That's interesting. So we have the boomerang now. And the boomerang Okay. I will explain that these tentacle things are blocking the door. Yeah. And you can't get past them. You have to red slimy thing. So you have to kind of I think the most efficient way is that you would memorize the color of the slimy thing, and that will become important as things go along. So this one's like a grey blue color, but you can't get past it at this stage. These things are what are they called again? Oh, I can't access Navi's information. While I'm holding Ruto, I didn't know that. So for some reason Navi can't talk to you while you're... It's funny, I'm getting memories now back to when the first time I ever played this game, and my neighbour, who's one of my oldest friends now, he was playing with us, and I just remember him saying that this was the grossest thing he'd ever seen in a video game. Even though he'd played like Resident Evil, he was like, this place is just disgusting. Yeah, so you have to leave Ruto here. Because that's a pressure. The blue switch is a pressure switch. It means that the door will close off if you move her. Now, again, as with much in Zelda, you need, once you've acquired the main item in the dungeon, you need to use it. Now, the trick is to just sit close. Oh. Said that with all confidence, and look what happened. The trick is that if you move close to this thing, what's this thing called? Parasitic tentacle, and even Navi's not really sure about the name. But if you move close, it will come down to try and strike you. If you move away, it will retreat, and you won't be able. Your boomerang will be ineffective. Basically, you have to hit its narrow spot, and the only way to do that is when you're close. So you need to swing close, launch your boomerang, and then basically immediately start moving backward, which is not what I did. So as soon as the boomerang's left your hands, you can feel free to try and prevent yourself from being hit, just in case you did miss. Okay, so if I remember rightly, obviously I've explained that, yeah, she does wait for you. I thought maybe you'd have to go back to that main room again, but she does wait for you outside the room. Now, we defeated, I believe this one should still be, oh no, it's gone. Yeah, yeah, the red slimy thing is gone. So we defeated a red tentacle, and whatever it was that was blocking that door has gone, so this is the real clue to this part of the dungeon. I have one time limit. You want to target these guys, and then immediately throw the boomerang. If they touch you, there's the first one that touched me. It is a good idea to try and prevent that, because it'll knock down your heart a little bit. Is that the last one? Yeah, so I had about 10 seconds to spare. That's not too bad, considering that I wasn't really prepared for this room. I don't know what happens if the timer runs out, actually. It's possible that you just don't get the chest and you have to come back into the room and start again. I very, very much doubt it, that the game will just completely lock it out to you, but yeah, there you go. So the map and the compass will be actually kind of useful in this game, particularly if you've never played it before. So it is just as well that you do, you know, it's convenient and well within reach for you to actually get those. Again, you know, kudos to the programmers of the game for thinking that through. Did get the dungeon map, didn't I? Yeah, don't know why my map isn't showing in the bottom corner. Yeah. So that one's blocked off, but there should be another one down here that has the original red slimy thing. And this one leads us to another slime. So we'll begin to see the pattern here now. See, I'm being a little bit more cautious now. Following my own advice. Yeah, so you don't actually receive anything for this one. I think I remember the first time I wondered, like, is there supposed to be another chest? But there's really not. You're just supposed to use that to advance through the dungeon. You can't be rewarded all the time. So that was where we originally came in. I believe this middle one now should be sealed off. So this one is a little bit trickier because you have to fend against the jellyfish, but it's just as well because the central one won't attack you unless you get close anyway. So it gives you plenty of time to. Oh, really risky and. Oh, okay. Oh, you're joking. Okay, that shows me for being clever. But still targeted, right? Yeah. So the tentacle's giving me some trouble now. That's my lesson not to be cocky. Well, oh, no, I definitely got away. So I think... Oh god, I'm going to have to remind myself. One of these corner ones is something like... Ah! I think it's this one. Is like a special... Yeah, it's this one. So basically, the hole that is the most in the corner, there was a there are two here? I didn't know that. There's like a tentacle thing, like a grey slimy thing, whichever the last slimy thing was. Let's get into the targeting first. Yeah, boomerang not overly useful unless you're targeting. Yeah, there's when you first enter the dungeon, I probably should have mentioned, but there is a grey slimy thing that you will notice in that place. So you have to defeat those three tentacles before that electrified tentacle will disappear, and that will allow you to actually drop down into this platform here. So you recognise this is actually the room in which Ruto fell down into, but this is a part of that room that we couldn't access before. Okay. This is the first place I had a lot of trouble when I was playing on mobile. That looks ominously like a spiritual stone. So that's it. I guess we've done it. That was pretty easy. I always love that line. I love that they put that line in. But why Princess Ruto? You're supposed to get it. The lady knows what she wants. And it's mini boss time. This can be a little bit tricky, just for reasons of camera angles. You know, camera angles are pretty good in this game, but they're not stellar. And you know, in this is one case where I think it just kind of falls a little short. Oh. Okay. Okay. Excellent. So what you need to do is make sure that you've built up a little bit of, or worked out a bit of a distance from the octopus, and then use boomerang, and then you use it again. Sometimes I'm a bit premature. You actually have to wait for him to start turning. Okay. And he will either be immobilized in front of you, or he will have his sort of, you know, rear end open and on show and ready for you to slash. And I do recommend you take a moment to pull out your sword and then target him and jump slash, because you know, obviously again that will count for 2 hits, and it's only 4 hits to defeat him. So you know, you can see how quickly I dispensed with him. Yeah, I had real trouble with that when I was playing on mobile, because obviously no real controls, and camera angle was just completely throwing me at odds. So we're getting kind of close to the... Oh! Wow. Octoroks. It's always the bloody Octoroks. Ones that get you when you least suspect it. And I think it's just, obviously, I've been playing Breath of the Wild most recently, and the Octoroks in that game are the most annoying Octoroks in any iteration of The Legend of Zelda ever. They are extremely accurate, and they're really good at predicting where you're going to be standing by the time their projectile reaches you. Okay. I want to jump onto this platform here. Please do not screw that jump up, otherwise you will have to you will have to do it again. What we've done here is we now bridge the gap between this part of the original room and this previously inaccessible part of the room. Again, I think there's a certain neatness in the way that the programmers have developed this part of the dungeon. Comes together quite nicely. You want to use one of these crates to drop on the pressure switch, where previously we had used Ruto. And then I do recommend taking a moment to get rid of these guys, because they will follow you about the room. Oh, I missed this guy. Not entirely sure what happened there. The game registered a hit for something else. I think maybe because there was some Deku Seeds in front of the enemy, but then I didn't receive any Deku Seeds, so I'm not quite sure how that happened. I think you do have to be targeting this to hit it the first time. I think for ages I remember trying it without targeting, because I thought that was the only way you could get the angle, but actually the game is smart enough to know what you're trying to do, and it will put a proper angle on it. Okay. Bioelectric anemone baronade. Okay. I do remember this one having the most ridiculous name of the first boss. What you want to do is make sure that you're strafing basically the entire way through this boss battle. So get a target on the nearest thing that you can, wherever that may be, and then just continue to strafe around his attacks, because they will always be directly at you, and there's a delay enough that if you continue to strafe them, it will never hit you. Then, as what I'm doing here, you want to basically bring yourself out pretty far. I don't think you can target these guys. Okay. When the sort of the carousel, I want to call it carousel, begins to stop, you want to go around and try and take out as many of these free floaters as you can. Yes. Just rolled into the wall there because I just thought if I don't roll, he's going to hit me. So I got lucky there. I'm not sure whether his attacks actually get faster. It looks like that maybe they do as you go along. But once you've hit all three, there. Okay, right. He will lift himself out. All the rest of them. He will lift himself out of the ground, and you have to try and get all of these guys now, which is pretty easy because they don't really move. Okay, and then once you've taken out the majority of them, it should be an easy enough task to, again, start in the centre, take out the last one, and then he will just fly around, and this thing is left open for an attack. And again, just keep strafing. If you have to lean across your controller to do it, that's, no harm, no foul. That's pretty much what I'm doing. Ha! Yeah, and probably a good word of advice again for someone who hasn't played this game in a long time. Probably serve you well to keep going in the direction that you're going in. Otherwise, you can see that if you keep your direction going, it's pretty harmless. I think this is it. So I did it a little bit better than King Dodongo. Honestly, I went into work today and told my workmates about how bad that boss battle was. It's just so embarrassing that, done that boss battle like probably 15 times, I guess, something like that, just because you end up doing the boss battles at the beginning of the game a lot when you're doing replays and playthroughs and stuff. So it's infuriating that the one time I record it, like, that's at the absolute worst I've ever done. Inexcusable. Ruto's character model really irritated me in this bit. The fact that her mouth stayed open and didn't close, and I don't know, she's blushing but also really angry. Again, possibly a manga or anime trope that I'm not aware of. Maybe. Also, Ruto seems to have these weird eyes in the side of her head, if you see that. Well, I'm not going to beat around bush. Excellent. Yeah, that reminds me actually, one thing I was going to mention previously when we were getting an entry into Lord Jabu-Jabu is that, Ruto had put on a note, P.S. don't tell my father, and of course, what you have to do to advance the story is not follow her advice in the slightest, and the first thing you do is go and tell her father. And that's how you get entrance into Zora's Fountain. So yeah, Ruto takes place by her father there. She doesn't play much more of a role at this stage in the game, but she will later on. And she's crushing on Link quite a bit. I love that that animation when Link receives the Zora Sapphire. Again, very much that sweeping camera angle, very much reminiscent of Imperial's Emerald as well. Do I want to? I know there's a teleport here. I think it goes to the Lost Woods, but I don't think there's anything really integral that I need to get there at this stage. For the story's sake, it doesn't make much sense for us to go back into Kokiri Forest right now. Kind of feel like I'm wasting my rupees. Once you hit 99 rupees, you can't collect any more until you upgrade your wallet. And quite honestly, I'm gonna have to Google how to upgrade the adult's wallet because I've forgotten. And you'll notice the music is starting to change there. I'm not entirely sure if it's because the sun's going down or not, but yeah. Okay, I'm gonna just take a moment to look around. You'll notice that the sky has darkened, and I can tell you that that's... I'm trying to be poetic and, like, you know, take on a narrative role here, and the Style Childs just keep attacking me. It was quite appropriate that that the sun started to go down at that exact moment, because you'll notice that something is very different about the environment here in Hyrule Field, and that's that the drawbridge was up during the day. So obviously it's a interesting point to note when you're running around at night. But the drawbridge is up. So I'm actually going to leave this playthrough here because there's an important moment coming up. I won't ruin other than telling you that there's an important moment coming up. But yeah, I'm just gonna these guys. Yeah, really key story moment coming up. So do be sure to tune in next time just to catch what's arguably, I think, one of the most iconic scenes in the game, particularly early on in the game. So thanks for watching, guys. Tune in next time, and I'll see you then. Cheers.